Thanks for checking out my video. If you want to learn more from me, I have a lot of classes on Udemy. You can find the links to a lot of those in the description.
Okay, so this particular video topic was brought up by one of my patrons. If you are interested in actually a lot of good stuff, then you can check out my Patreon. I do a lot of rituals on the regular just for practice, where I put in the intentions of my patrons to help kind of boost what they are up to. I take video requests there. I have tons of different resources as I do my own research, and I share anything that I find with my patrons, all sorts of good stuff on there. But anyway, how to hear spirits easier, right? So, when we're working with magic, whether we're doing, invocation, evocation, we're exploring different systems, a lot of times we're working with different spirits. If it's the Goetic spirits, if it's Jinn, if it's the 50 Names of Marduk, if it's anyone from the Simon Necronomicon, or, there's tons of different spirits out there. How can we hear them easier? How can we communicate with them easier? And there's plenty of different things that we can do to tune our antennas better so we can communicate with those spirits easier. Now, I'm shooting from the hip with this stuff. So, first off, pay attention to the surroundings when you are doing your rituals, and I know I've talked about this in other videos at some different points, where spirits don't necessarily communicate by just coming out and saying, "Hello, it's me," right? Sometimes they will communicate through through other means, basically. Like when I was doing one of the 50 Names of Marduk, and there was a loud bang behind me. In my house, I have the washer and dryer upstairs in a hallway. I have stacked stairways. And when I was doing it, and one of the 50 Names of Marduk, there was a super loud noise in the hallway. It was definitely not from my neighbors. I know what those noises sound like, but that was probably a spirit communicating with me. One of the examples that D.H. Thorne brought up in one of his videos about a spirit communicating through synchronicity or coincidence was he asked to hear something, like a sign from a particular spirit that he was working with, and right at that moment there was a train horn that went off. You can have something like a candle that you're burning suddenly takes a very characteristically interesting movement with the flame. You can have if you're burning incense or something, and then the pattern of the way that the smoke is moving can suddenly change, without influence from like an open window or a fan or something like that. And then you could have something get knocked off of a wall. You could have, maybe the lights uncharacteristically flicker at that time. Something like that. So there's a lot of these different things that we need to pay attention to. We can call them coincidence we can call it, just that thing happened to happen at that particular time. But when you're studying magic, you got to take in a lot of these things into account, where, we see everything around us as significant when we have our antennas tuned in, for lack of a better term. I hope that you guys are kind of picking up what I'm putting down with this one. Okay, next, if we're talking about actual communication, that goes on a couple of different levels. We can get emotional feelings or vibes. We can get pictures or imagery or symbolism. We can get words, or we can get full-on phrases. I like to kind of put them in that hierarchical order, right? Where this goes along a lot of ways with tulpomancy. If you've ever studied psychological tulpomancy, these different levels of communication can also come from spirits, and this of course depends on your proficiency of having what I like to call your antenna tuned in. And this is done, tuning the antenna and such, is done through quieting the mind through meditation and other mindfulness techniques. If we eliminate or lessen or are able to control the chatter that goes on in our minds, which is almost constant, or honestly is constant, because your brain needs to find stuff to do and stuff to think about all the time. It's why if you go into one of those, deprivation tanks, you start to have very interesting things happen, or one of those soundproof rooms where the sound is literally negative decibels, so your brain starts to make stuff up, right? Because it needs to fill in that blank space that is created because there's no noise. Well, when you tune your antenna through meditation, you allow this empty space in your mind that you're not constantly filling with chatter. And then when you're working with a spirit, you're doing an invocation, an evocation, what have you. This allows for that spirit to communicate to you and arguably through you. Remember, we are the antenna. So when you're working with a spirit and you do an evocation or an invocation, and you are communicating with them, maybe you ask them a question, maybe you state a directive, you ask them to demonstrate who they are, something like that, and then you stay quiet. And you will wait for that spirit to communicate. Like I said, their response can come in that hierarchical order. You can get an emotion. You might all of a sudden start feeling like tense or happy or angry or sad. This could be that spirit communicating with you. Now, all this stuff is kind of discernment, because we could be filling in these, like, with expectations of, when I do this invocation, the spirit's going to be really happy about and to help me with this particular issue. Provided you do all these offerings and things like that, that we have to really train ourselves to have that quiet mind, so you're just not filling it in, having this experience that you are completely feeding into, and then it's like you just are role-playing instead of magic, and you're not actually listening to that spirit, and you're not actually communicating with that particular spirit. But when you have that quiet time with your mind, then when you get that emotional energy that just seemingly comes out of left field, it's not coming from you, and you'll train yourself to understand this over time, which is why magic is best done repeatedly over time, and the more that you do it, the better that you get, because you're tuning your antenna and you're building your ability to communicate with these spirits. So when you get that different emotion that rises up from somewhere else, from left field, you'll understand it's coming from a spirit. It's not coming from you. Then as you continue to work with it, you might get a random word that gets interjected in your mind. That's coming from that spirit that you're working with. That's not coming from you. Then you continue to build and work with these skills and things, and then you'll get sentences. And then you might even build your way up to getting paragraphs. I'm not even there yet. And this is, after, God, how many years of practice? I keep working at it. There's always something for me to work at. Now, so you have that clear mind space, and then you start to get those messages. This is spirit communication. They communicate through you. They communicate through these vibes of emotions, pictures, thoughts, feelings, words, sentences, paragraphs that pop up in your mind, and they feel like they are coming from somewhere else. Now, an extra level above that would be what's called an auditory hallucination, where you actually hear them as if they are in the room, like you are, you hear them in the same manner as if you were in the room with another physical person. That other physical person was talking to you. So it's not coming up through the inside of your mind, through that antenna. You are getting that sensation literally from outside of you, as if it's going into your eardrums, like you are talking like someone else is talking to you. Have I had that kind of thing? Arguably once or twice. I can't exactly pin it on, on like what particular words were said or what particular experience. But, this is the kind of like EVP level stuff where it's an external thing that you hear. And that is arguably, the pinnacle of communicating with the spirit aside from an actual physical manifestation. And, I could probably do something along the same lines of this video as with the manifestation of spirits. Ooh, great idea. Anyways, so yeah, this has been a little bit on how to communicate with spirits easier. I hope this helps. If you guys want to request a particular video, or if you want, some extra perks and a little bit of a magical boost from me, then, you can definitely check out my Patreon. But let me know what you guys think about this particular video if you're watching on YouTube, or podcast if you got this over on Spotify or one of the other podcast places. Anyways, good hunting.
Thanks for watching my video. So if you want to check out my playlists, I have, among others, the Simon Necronomicon, the Tree of Life, General Magic, Tulpamancy, a playlist on my books, the elements, stones, the theories that govern magic, and the gods and goddesses of Mesopotamia. If you want to check out my books on Amazon, I have Creating Consciousness, Magical Mechanics, Magical Theater, Handy Sigil Magic, Magical Movement, which is an update and expansion upon Handy Sigil Magic, Magical Mastery, which is a combination masterwork of Magical Theater and Magical Mechanics, and The Guide to the Spheres and Beyond. You can also find me on Facebook at Magickology YT. You can email me at priestofthenecro@gmail.com, and you can even check out my Instagram, which is Magickology. And good hunting.